Rachel Reeves has recently faced accusations of dishonesty during her live television appearances, particularly regarding her financial plans and past statements. Critics have alleged that she was misleading during her budget presentation and in subsequent discussions, claiming that some of her assertions were not fully accurate. These accusations of dishonesty have stirred debate, with opposition figures asserting that Reeves misrepresented key aspects of her policies, including the expected outcomes of her proposed tax increases and budgetary changes. Have a watch.
A family like
Rebecca,
that would be about £100,000 a year that they don't feel they'll have. So what are you saying to her? Suck it up?
well, what I'm saying is that last year, only a very small number of farms would have been paying any additional inheritance tax. I hope that Rebecca and her family will look through the details, because if the farm is owned by two people, you have £3 million essentially tax-free, and then the tax rate is a 50% discount on everyone else, and you would have 10 years to pay it. So only a very small number of agricultural properties will be affected. But last year, the benefits of agricultural property relief, 40% of the benefit was felt by 7% of the wealthiest landowners. I don't think that it is affordable to carry on with a relief like that when our public services are under so much pressure. And of course, farmers as well rely on good public services, whether that's our NHS, our roads or our schools.
Okay.
And that money will be put back into improving our public services and putting our public finances on a firm footing.
Said to the country back on June the 11th. Here's to you.
I don't need to become Chancellor to know what a mess the government have made of public finances, of public services, and the fact that the tax burden is at its highest level in 70 years. We don't need higher taxes. What we need is growth. I don't want to, and I have no plans to increase any taxes beyond those which we have already set out.
Now, you specifically said you already knew everything you needed to know, yet on Wednesday, you raised taxes by £40 billion. Why would a reasonable person believe a single word that you say in the next 15 minutes and that you'll stick to it?
I was wrong on the 11th of June. I didn't know everything, because when I arrived at the Treasury on the 5th of July, so just under a month after I said those words, I was taken into a room by the senior officials at the Treasury, and they set out the huge black hole in the public finances beyond which anybody knew about at the time of the general election, because the previous government hid it from the country, they hid it from Parliament, and indeed they hid it from the official independent forecaster, the Office of Budget Responsibility. And so when I went into that budget last week, I had to put our public finances back on a firm trajectory, because we saw in the previous Parliament what happens when government loses control of the public finances. We did need to raise taxes in this budget to put our public finances on a sound trajectory.
Of taxes. It's the biggest tax-raising budget since 1993. It's gigantic. And you said before the election no plans to raise taxes, or the PM did, beyond the £8 billion that you had earmarked. So a lot of people out there are going to be quite shocked today.
Well, in the decisions that we've made in the budget today, I accept that this is a big and a substantial budget.
But
it wasn't the budget that I was.
It wasn't the budget straight with them.
It wasn't the budget that I was expecting to deliver when I became Chancellor on the 5th of July. I didn't think that any government would be so reckless to have £22 billion
You've
of
lifted
unfunded
taxes by
commitments.
£40 billion.
I absolutely recognise that. In our manifesto, we had commitments of £8.5 billion. In addition, as I said, there's a £22 billion black hole which recurs every
Chancellor,
year.
even if you accept the £22 billion black hole, £8 billion of that is because you decided to settle public sector pay disputes. Are you telling me, seriously, that you did not have an inkling before the general election that you might have to find billions of pounds to settle those pay disputes? And why didn't you level with the British public about that?
The previous government set the remit for the pay review bodies, the independent pay review bodies. And astonishingly, and we did not know this, and you did not know this...
Rachel Reeves has recently made headlines for her budget presentation on December 10th, 2024, where she outlined tax hikes to address a £22 billion deficit inherited from the Conservative government. During live Q&A sessions in the House of Commons, she defended her budget against criticisms, emphasizing efficiency savings across government departments. Reeves has also highlighted her commitment to preserving essential public services while cutting unnecessary spending. In addition to parliamentary debates, she has engaged with the public through visits to hospitals, focusing on healthcare funding and efficiency. Her efforts aim to present Labour's financial plans as responsible and sustainable. Before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe. Have a watch.
Not an option. We've already seen official ONS figures this month showing that borrowing is higher this year than the OBR expected. And the disaster of Liz Truss's mini-budget shows what happens if you don't take tough decisions to maintain economic stability. Some, including the Leader of the Opposition and the Shadow Chancellor, have claimed the books were open. How dare they? It is not true. And let me tell you why. There are very clear instances of specific budgets that were overspent and unfunded promises that were made, but that crucially the OBR was not aware of for their March forecast. I will now take each of these in turn. First, the asylum system. The forecast for the number of asylum seekers has risen dramatically since the last spending review, and costs for asylum support have risen sevenfold in the past 3 years. The previous government covered up the true extent of this crisis and its spending implications. The document I am publishing today reveals a projected overspend on the asylum system, including their failed Rwanda plan, for this year alone, of more than £6.4 billion. That was unfunded and it was undisclosed. Next, in the wake of the pandemic, demand for rail services fell. But instead of developing a proper plan to adjust for this new reality, the government handed out cash to rail companies to make up for passenger shortfalls, but failed to budget for this adequately.
Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt.
Today, she will fool absolutely no one with a shameless attempt to lay the grounds for tax rises she didn't have the courage to tell us about.
Order. No then, this is the Cabinet. I want it to act like a Cabinet, like a rabble that's trying to show the Shadow Chancellor. Jeremy Hunt.
She says, Mr. Speaker, the information is new. But she herself told the Financial Times, you don't need to win an election to find out the state of public finances, as we've got the OBR now. Paul Johnson of the IFS says the state of public finances were apparent pre-election to anyone who cared to look, which is why he and other independent figures say her argument is not credible and won't wash. Those public finances were audited by the OBR just 10 weeks before the election was called. We're now expected to believe that in that short period, a £20 billion black hole has magically emerged. But every single day in that period, in fact since January, in line with constitutional convention, she has had privileged access to the Treasury Permanent Secretary. She could find out absolutely anything she needed. So will she confirm today to the House she did have meetings with the Permanent Secretary of the Treasury before the election? Will she tell the House if they discussed public finances? Will she tell the House if they discussed any of the pressures she's talking about today? And if so, why are we only hearing today what she wants to do about them? That's why today's exercise is not economic, it's political.
What are your thoughts on this? Make sure to comment below. In my view, while it's important for politicians to be held accountable, it's also crucial to consider the context and verify the facts before rushing to judgment. Everyone makes mistakes, and political discourse can often be heated, but transparency and honesty are key to maintaining public trust. However, in this case, I believe she's totally lying. If you think this video has provided you with useful information, make sure to like and subscribe. Take care and goodbye.